Welcome to the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm your host, Danny Gavin, and together with industry leaders and marketing experts, we'll explore the meeting point of mentorship and marketing. We'll discover how these connections have affected careers, marketing strategies, and lives. Now get ready to get human. Welcome to a special edition of the Digital Marketing Mentor, where we dive deep into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence and the revolutionary ChatGPT. In this unique episode, we'll bring you highlights of captivating interviews with esteemed guests who have explored the possibilities and implications of AI tools. Join us as we unravel the intricacies of this cutting-edge technology, its impact on the digital marketing landscape, and the profound ways in which it has the potential to shape our creative world. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and captivated by this exploration into the best of AI and ChatGPT. How would you utilize ChatGPT and AI for your marketing efforts?
I'm trying to incorporate it into everything that we do, honestly. I recently posted a list of positions that I'm looking for, and one of them was AI wranglers. So a friend called me out. I was like, what's the job description for that role? And frankly, someone that can implement AI practices and, whether it's better prompt writing into every process to make it more efficient. There's no reason to be afraid of it and to run away from it and to think of it as the enemy. It is absolutely going to make us all better marketers, more efficient if we use it right. Are people going to abuse it? Absolutely. Are we going to see a bunch of junk content that's trying to spam the internet and rank for keywords without adding any value? Of course. And we have been already for a couple of years. It's a cat and mouse game on that side. But if you're in, I would say any business, not even a business. I showed ChatGPT to my daughter and we're playing around with it and, we're exploring, what can we use it for? What can't we use it for? What are the implications? And we're just scratching the surface. I know that everybody's talking about it now. It's a watershed moment for AI. These models have existed for a few years now. GPT-3 has been around for about a year and a half. ChatGPT is based on 3.5. What's coming is incredible and I'm very excited about it. You asked me, practically, if you can use it as a tool to help you be better at your job, by all means do it. If you use it as a crutch as an excuse for not being creative, not being original, and really plagiarism, then you haven't added any value. So we're using it in content creation, in social media creation. That doesn't mean that, an entire post can be written by a single AI prompt, but if you know how to ask the right questions and the right follow-up questions, you can get really good output. I'll give you a simple example. I gave a prompt to ChatGPT to write a blurb about a podcast episode, and it gave me something that was kind of mediocre. So I rewrote it, and then I put it back into ChatGPT and I said, "Hey, I rewrote what you wrote. Tell me why it's better." And it specifies, you did X, Y, and Z. You were clearer about the value and made it more interesting to the reader, or whatever it was. And then I went back and I gave it another episode. I said, now based on what you've learned, write a description about this episode. And it improves. Every thread within ChatGPT has a memory. So you can train it to improve. And that's what these other companies that are built on top of GPT-3, like Jasper and Copy AI, and you've got a bunch of them. You have Inc. here in Houston. But a lot of these companies that are leveraging on top of these models, they're just building those kind of training on top of, and also the prompt infrastructure on top of the language model. So you can do amazing things. Content, obviously, processes, getting more efficient, getting a little bit lazy on some things, but if it helps to speed something up that really a robot should be doing, then give it to the robots. Why would we want to be doing it? So that's my general advice that I'm telling my kids, my nieces, nephews, and I guess to anybody who wants to hear me shouting from the rooftops. We need to be spending our time learning how to be human and learning how to work with AI. We don't need to be afraid of AI replacing humans because they are not human. They would do a lot of things very, very well, and we should let them.
So having worked in digital marketing and traditional media companies like The Chronicle, KPRC, in general, what is your stance on the use of AI for content generation?
So the one thing that I want to say, and again, this is all my opinion, not Microsoft's, is that I understand that there is a lot of confusion out there naturally. This is super new and it's been fast and furious, and it's by all means, and there is no question about that, technological revolution. So, obviously that generates a lot of confusion and that generates a lot of fear and that generates a lot of expectation. from where I see it, and obviously, as you can imagine, we work a lot internally with these tools. And particularly because I am in the communications department, we as communicators inside the company work a lot with these tools. The purpose here is actually to make generative AI a tool that supports humans and not the other way around. So when I hear, and again, this is me speaking, when I hear things like, oh, we're all going to lose our jobs because of this, or this is the time when we're all going to be wiped off or by AI and everything that AI is going to bring along with it. I understand the fear again, and I understand the concerns, but for me, they are totally unfounded. Because one of the things that is super important to make a distinction about is that generative AI is a very specific kind of AI, as you know very well, Danny. And so what virtually generative AI does is that it will create, but it will create with prompts. And the prompts need to come from a human brain. So to give you an example, we just did a story. I was kind of managing a storytelling project that was amazing for me, very dear to my heart, about 3 different Microsoft clients in Latin America, in 3 different countries in Latin America that are actually in the fintech industry. And they are using AI to generate financial inclusion in Latin America, which is really low. And when we were interviewing the 3 of them across the board will say, the thing with AI that a lot of people do not understand yet is that this is a human brain directing AI. So whatever prompts we put into this system or whatever queries we put into this system need to come from someone that is a human thinking being. Otherwise, AI would be of no use. So the first thing that I would say is that the main purpose is to actually help us be more efficient, be more productive, be more creative. From that standpoint, I absolutely love it. Concerns are still out there, and I would include myself when I say concerns, maybe not so much like a concern, but kind of a realization that there is still a long way to go in terms of polishing certain things. Obviously, it has to be used in a very responsible manner, and it has to be presented in a very responsible manner. Which, again, by the way, that is something that Microsoft is not only very aware of, but really working a lot into. And again, not talking about the company, I'm just, telling you my own experience, but it's true. And that is something that obviously comes in phases. That is not something that is going to be there from the get-go. But what is undeniable is that if well used, and if properly used in ways that actually can help us, this is an amazing tool.
Especially as we enter an age with AI built into everything. I've seen it like ChatGPT compared to a calculator, but for words. I like that analogy. Calculators, in some ways, it made us less patient with doing the math. But then it also elevated us to beyond the mechanics. Instead of spending so much time on the mechanics of mathematics, we can actually use the numbers for something else. I've never been a fan of what I call word carbs, which is all the words that we all say that don't bring extra value. That are blah, blah, blah. Okay, then there's like 10% that's what you needed to know inside of there. And I think this will basically make it even easier to differentiate between the piece of knowledge that you need and all of that fluff all around it, because it's so easy to produce now. Instead of that being a valuable skill, putting together this just packaging and packaging on packaging of words, you're going to get value. The value of the real knowledge becomes highlighted.
I'm so glad that you mentioned ChatGPT because, and for those people who don't know, like the power of it. So for example, like let's say I sit on a call for 30 minutes and I'm taking notes, copious notes on exactly what people are saying. What I'll then do is I can take that transcript, stick it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you pull out the main points of the conversation? Or, what are the main things that I should focus on or remember? And literally it will analyze that text and bring to the surface what you're looking for. I think a lot of people spend is ChatGPT accurate or not? But I think the power is sometimes taking your own data and your own information, feeding it in, and then building off of that. And it's been truly powerful.
I tried it for the first time in that respect with a community WhatsApp group. There was all this discussion. It just was, I woke up to 400 or 500 messages. It was about something about housing in our neighborhood. and the housing prices or whatever. And I copied and pasted it in, and I asked ChatGPT to summarize, and it did. And then I said, can you list the 5 main opinions? And this was, by the way, I didn't format it well. I just plunked it in with bad formatting, and it listed the 5 main opinions, the most vocal voices, what they believe. This stuff is coming. It's already here, and we have the change is going to be something on the order of the internet. Not specifically from ChatGPT, but the whole age of all of this stuff from all the companies and how it's going to be integrated and everything. I think it's going to shake everything up again, much like the internet did. There's going to be entirely new opportunities. The playing board is it's going to be shaken up. So it ties into that other conversation, with kind of the packaging becoming less important because it can be done by a robot versus the value that we humans add is the true creativity, not the amalgamation of every opinion on the internet, but something that's new and creative. And it will always be those things. And so back to the yeshiva world and why I'm bullish on it. And generally speaking, why I think that there are opportunities for self-directed people who are not inside the mainstream of the university system is because there'll be opportunities for them to shine, especially with these kinds of tools.
With Google adding, and also Bing, right, adding AI and, generative responses on the top, do you feel like it's going to push people to produce less content? Like, is that a concern at all for you?
I think maybe over the long term it will, but there's still a lot of traffic to go around. I think we have a long time to kind of ride it down, to be completely honest with you. I mean, it's not nearly as easy to get traffic from search engines to content that you've created as it used to be, right? I mean, I wish I understood, in 2011, when I got my first jobs in SEO, just like how easy it was at that time. I remember slamming, buying 50 exact match anchor text links, pointing them to a specific page, and boom, you rank number 1 for a 15,000 search a month keyword. It's really hard to do that these days. As it specifically relates to content, SEO is just one use of content. I think SEO content itself and content written just to rank and get traffic is it's changing. It's definitely changing with SGE with generated content in there, but there's so much content that's created for marketing and sales and business purposes that is not SEO content, right? There's press releases, there's ebooks, there's sales collateral, there's decks, there's presentations, there's all that stuff. And then, and then you get into books and academic papers and that kind of thing. There is so much content out there that I feel like we can, we can kind of adjust with the times. But we also haven't really seen a decrease. The only decreases we've seen are because of the current economic situation and people investing less into content, at least with the customers that we have. We've had a couple customers kind of trim back their monthly spend with us and the amount of content they're putting through simply because they've lost customers. So that's more the thing, but I expect it to come back, whenever things kind of turn around. But I don't really worry about it. There are definitely questions about AI and how's that going to affect things, and we're grappling with those questions as well. But we're also working to deliver on it when people need it.
Yeah, I think it's early days. I think everyone's in the same boat. So it's just a matter of kind of looking at what's happening. And I agree with you. I think it's going to take a little bit of time before we get to that point where suddenly things change completely. So we're all along for the same ride.
Yeah, I think it's kind of going to be the way I think about it is people used to talk about the year of mobile, right?
Yes.
There was never a year of mobile. You look back and then you can see the trend of over 7 years, mobile went from 20% to 60% of traffic, but nothing jumped from 20 to 60 or whatever, So I think it's going to shift like that, and we'll start seeing a shift of balances and that kind of thing. I don't know what those shifts are going to be, but I think that's more what it'll be.
I think that there are a lot of SEOs that are no ChatGPT, don't ever use it. We use it. We embrace it. And there's actually a member of my team who started using it right away. And I love the initiative. Before I even started using it, she came to me hey, I did some really cool stuff with ChatGPT. Can I use it? I'm sure, this is awesome. So I love when they take initiative like that, and it was great. And we're using it. We've integrated it into our processes. I think that in general, it's not going anywhere. It's only getting smarter. And the SEOs and the content marketers and the people who are going to survive are the ones who are integrating AI and ChatGPT into their work and coming out with smarter decisions because of it. If you try to fight it, I think if you say don't use it, it's the devil, it's everybody else is using it. So I would say rather let's embrace it and figure out ways to use it and make us smarter and quicker and better. I'm not going to say we definitely have some content that we write completely from scratch. And there's a lot of content that we say, throw it into ChatGPT, we edit it, we fix it, and it's good. Google says that they don't like ChatGPT content. I want to see how they're checking it. I don't know.
That's really interesting. But I agree, you have to find a way to integrate it because the people who aren't doing that are going to be left behind. I don't know if you can answer this question, but is the company using ChatGPT for like listings and coming up with like content to describe a property?
Not really. We're the only department within the company, obviously, that uses it. And we still have a very hands-on approach because I have, an in-house team there's enough people that we have the manpower. So yes, we'll use ChatGPT to save time there's work that we used to outsource to freelancers that now we use ChatGPT for, but we do the same thing that we would have done with a freelancer. So that's where I'm like, it's the same thing. We would have sent it to a freelancer and then edited it, fixed it up. So now we'll do the same thing. We'll give it to ChatGPT and then we'll edit it and fix it up. But the core work we're still doing ourselves. And I think it's the creativity and the understanding of your consumer and your demographics. That's not changing. Like we have to have the right mindset and then know how to use ChatGPT to further our goals.
So back in March, you tweeted, if you don't know how to write, you don't know marketing. With the world of AI-generated content swiftly encroaching on the world of digital marketing, how does this impact your stance on writing in the marketing world?
If you don't know how to write prompts, you don't know marketing. So,
do you want to elaborate?
I think writing and getting a message across, and this could be like writing copy, it could be writing a video script, it could be writing a brand plan, it could be writing an email to communicate with somebody and influence an idea, right? Lots of different elements of writing that are really important. Let's just take it from a content generation point of view. Content's huge for companies right now, and you've got to be able to create content. And if you don't understand how to do that, then you're going to struggle. It's an important part of business. I'm a firm believer in the inbound marketing model that you create content for your customers for when they're looking for it. And, that attracts them to your business. They'll find it when they're looking. If you have good content out there, you're more likely to be found. Now, with AI, kind of changing the game. Now, what AI can't do is have the unique, flavorful experiences that you or I have, right? They don't have your background in music or your international background, your growing up in South Africa, having this really diverse and unique life that you could pull from in your experiences and your storytelling. So you're still kind of getting like ChatGPT with this sort of, I don't want to use the word soulless, right? But it's sort of like plain Jane right now. But I think the more you can maybe write prompts to tell ChatGPT a story, like, hey, this is an event that happened in my life and this is how I felt about it. And I want you to write a piece of copy that talks about how my life was impacted by this and how this product could help in that situation. I definitely think AI is something important to be discussing in our classes, because I've even experimented with a few of those posts that you maybe referenced earlier, using AI to help me generate some ideas. But at the end of the day, it's still, you got to add some personality to it. And I think the way to do that is just becoming more familiar with it, playing with it, practicing, trying out different prompts, and really like figuring out how to make the AI as interesting as you can make it. I hope that makes sense, but I think prompt engineering is going to be a new field in marketing that we need to start discussing. The implications for things like ChatGPT and some of these other AI writers is going to be really, really huge. So I'm looking forward to it. The trick right now is like, how do you encourage students to use the stuff, but not to completely rely on it, right? The school has some policies about like, hey, ChatGPT is considered plagiarism, but I want my students to use ChatGPT to help create, because that's what they're going to be doing in the real world. So some of my assignments are going to be along the lines of outline a blog post that would go over these topics and blah, 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 blah. So it's going to be super interesting to see over the next year how things change.
So usually what happens is people concentrate on things like, oh, but it completely lost it when, there is this famous anecdote of the New York Times journalist that spend hours talking back and forth with GPT. And then at the end of the day, GPT ended up declaring its love for him and asking him to basically leave his wife and marry GPT, which is really, you understand that at some point it's like, okay, this actually went off the rails because they were talking with each other. I mean, this guy was talking with GPT for about an hour or something like that. And so these are the ways to tweak things and to make them better, because it's like a trial error process and you are experimenting. But that is something that actually gets a lot of attention in the media. What I can tell you are the things that I have been experiencing with when I'm using AI that have made my life amazingly, I would say, easier, more efficient in so many different ways. And definitely think that for what I want to do, which is concentrating on my goals and the results I want to create, is almost like having an executive assistant on your side that will do a lot of those menial jobs for you that otherwise you need to spend a lot of time doing yourself.
Do you have any specific examples that you can share with us?
Actually, a very recent one. So I was trying to, for this particular story that I talked about, I was telling you that I was managing. It's a client story that is on our website. And it involved 3 different clients that we were interviewing, one in Mexico, one in Brazil, one in Argentina. So I was obviously coordinating all the photo shoots in all those 3 different countries. So for the one in Mexico, as it happened, I needed to coordinate a photo shoot in less than 15 minutes. This is a long story and I'm not going to bore you with that, but for different reasons, it had to happen in less than 15 minutes. I'm in Houston. This had to happen in Mexico. And I needed our person that was going to be photographed at a specific Walmart that was close to his offices. And I needed permission from Walmart to have this person in there with my photographer to take the photos. Imagine doing this in less than 15 seconds and I'm in Houston and I didn't even know where to start with. So I went to Bing. It sounds like a commercial, but I swear that this is true.
It's real.
I went to Bing and I said, I need you to find the closest Walmart to this particular address in Mexico City. It did. It gave me the map. It gave me the walking and driving distance in terms of distance and in terms of time. And once I had already settled in my image, okay, this is doable. I mean, this guy doesn't need to drive for about 2 hours to get there. The next thing that I asked was, okay, can you give me the names and contacts of every single person in the Walmart communication department in Mexico that I will need to touch base with just to ask for permission? And just gave me the roster of names and contact info. And without my asking, it came up with suggestions of different communications or emails that I could send for this particular task.
Oh, wow.
If I wanted to do so. And so in 5 minutes, I was calling the right person at Walmart Mexico to ask them for permission. And so I can tell you this, because I know this. If it weren't because of Bing at that particular point, it could have taken me hours to do the same thing. So Bing was not writing the story for me. Bing was not doing anything for me that I didn't want Bing to do. Bing was assisting me with information that otherwise would have taken me a long time to find around the internet. So those are the things that I'm still learning to use Bing in that way. But those are the things that literally blow my mind every day. And now that we have Copilot, that you have probably heard of, which is basically applying these for Microsoft 365, it's absolutely mind-blowing because you can go into a meeting and just, tell Copilot, okay, give me all the notes from previous meetings with this client or this person and just summarize the notes and then make a PowerPoint for me so I can share it on this call. And it will be like boom, 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 boom. So for me, it's like, oh, I always wanted to have an executive assistant in my life. And finally, it's happening, But Copilot will not talk for you in that meeting, will not make business decisions for you in that meeting. So I think that is a very important distinction that needs to be made.
But in terms of the big picture stuff, there's some consistent themes we're hearing from all of them. And one is that persuasive interpersonal skill set, being able to speak persuasively, because that's one thing that ChatGPT and AI, they can't do that. And it's going to be a long time before they can. So the human beings who've got that selling skill, basically, regardless of your field, you don't have to be in sales to need the selling skill. Accounting, finance, supply chain, everybody needs it. But the people that have that are much more successful and they move up more quickly. So that's one side. The other side is that ability to tell a story from data. So the computers are really good at creating data and saying this data says this about this data, and then you can make more data. But then the computer goes, ta-da, and walks away. And the human being has to be able to look at all of this data and say, ooh, based on this, we need to think differently, or we need to act differently, or we need to ask the computer some new questions to find better insights. But that ability to really understand data, tell stories with it, and that ability to talk persuasively with other people, that can't be outsourced to computers yet. It's something that it's harder to send it overseas because you need those client relationships for it to be meaningful. And so if you want to have growth and success, at least in the near term, those two broad areas are what I'm hearing again and again from computers.
For a while, I was like, I don't want to talk about ChatGPT around my kids because as soon as they find out about it, like their schooling is going to be totally different. But I had a chat with one of my other friends recently. He's like, no, like I spent, at night and sitting down with my, 13-year-old and going through, and I was like, ooh, that's a really good point. So I actually sat down, with my eldest and kind of went through what it's capable of and what I think, is the right way of using it and what could technically not be great. Just wondering your thought on that.
It's important I have already gone with my high school age daughter. We were working on something together with it. And yeah, I definitely, basically it's in the tool set now. And so we have to figure out how to use it, these kinds of tools to shine. I would not try to prevent it or prohibit it. It's also the school's jobs to figure out how to make it part of the curriculum, and then also create opportunities to make sure children learn and they're not just copying and pasting. And there should be some very clear ways to do it. I don't necessarily mean the arms race of technology, Chat Zero, GPT Zero, whatever it's called, finding out whether they use it or not. But things that are very clear, just pen and paper, things that show whether somebody's actually thought about a topic, and other ways that ChatGPT couldn't do.
Are you thinking about incorporating ChatGPT sort of lessons or modules within your core curriculum?
Yeah, so there's a few things. There's institutional policy around that type of thing, which varies from institution to institution. And then in terms of changing curriculum, I can adjust what's within a course, but changing the overall learning objectives of a course is a whole other thing that's out of my scope. I have decided mostly, because I'm not all the way there yet, mostly to embrace it. My general philosophy in my classes is if they can Google it while they're outside of my class in the workforce, then I need to teach them how to use it responsibly while they're inside my class. Because it's all well and good, and this is just my opinion. I just to any professors that do this differently, it's a whole new world. We're all figuring it out. I have no judgment on what other people are doing in their classrooms. But for me, I am okay, they're going to use ChatGPT. There's no way that they're not going to go into their careers and use it in some capacity. I used it the other day to brainstorm business names. I'm using it, they're probably using it. But can I teach them that it is not always accurate, that it doesn't have access to the internet, that it can't actually pull from sources? Can I teach them all the limitations? Can I teach them that because it was coded by a specific group of people in a specific country, that it has inherent biases within its programming? Can I teach them about the ethical implications of AI? Can I research all these elements and bring them into the classroom in a way that when they do go out into the world to use it, they have a lens from which they're seeing it, because I was the first voice they heard on the topic. And so we had an email marketing assignment in this one class I teach. And the assignment was get ChatGPT to write a sales email for you. And your job is to critique it. I want you, based on all of the best practices we've talked about in class, to tell me what ChatGPT said and tell me why you would do a better job as a human. So it's go use it, go do this with it, and then tell me where it's flawed. So that's the one thing that pops to mind.
And I think an essential question that you have to ask each time is what's wrong with it, right? What point out the problems. And I think that if we train our students and people in general to look for that, no one's going to just copy and paste, but they're going to, right, have to look, mull over and see what are the problems and how can I make it better.
Yeah, it's not perfect. It is not. There's so much misinformation out there about it too. So if I can teach them where to find good information, who to listen to check their sources. I personally, and again, this is my opinion and not that of my institution or any other professors that I work with, but my personal opinion is if it's something that they're going to be able to use in the real world, then we should be using it in my classroom so that they can figure out how to use it responsibly.
We've actually been seeing a lot more like kind of AI generated content that's being used for SEO purposes. But the ones that are doing it well have like a subject matter expertise doing it. They're writing the prompts. They're, going deep on it. They're asking, AI to go deeper. And actually, could you expound on this point? Like that sort of stuff. So like, I'm all good with that. But, as it relates to like new content being created, you can't just go and like write something, about a topic and then try to shoehorn in like, 3 mentions of this keyword and, call it a day, right? Like you actually need to go at it from a bit more like research perspective of like what kind of content needs to be in there, as well as like at what point in the funnel is this?
Most marketers seem to agree that AI content won't replace human copywriters and content writers. What do you think is the sort of upper limit on what you would feel comfortable generating with AI, specifically from a content perspective?
The one thing about chatbots like GPT that are AI generated, and as you said before, particularly with GPT, it uses large language models. And as you know very well, the information that this particular tool is coming back with, once you generate a prompt or ask questions, comes from searching around the web. Right. So the first concern, obviously, is accuracy. Where is this coming from? Where is the source? What is the source? How do I know that, this is a reliable source? I would say if you ever try Bing in this way, you will see that once it gives you the answer or answers, it also gives you, different numbers of this is source 1, this is source 2. If you want to click on the link, here is the link for you. But still, it's I would say it's a decent concern to have. The other thing is, one of the things that I think is great, that GPT is great for, and in this case, Bing, because as you know, is the same model, is the same technology, is basically creating summaries or drafts or even generating at your prompt ideas. The thing is, you will always need to polish that. You will always need to double check that. You will always need to expand on that. So it's I would say it's a great Kickstarter, but that's not the end of it. There's always, again, the human brain that needs to jump in and needs to tweak things and need to massage things and need to make sure that everything is correct and needs to make sure that the right information is there. I would say that down the road, probably because all these tools will only improve and will become more intelligent, I think probably down the road, what we will see is better uses of Bing or GPT in kind of at scale. Right now, although there is a lot of fun, and we also you do that, like write me a poem about this and that, and I want to write a book about this and that, so give me the plot, or, that's a lot of fun. There's still a way to go when we want to use artificial intelligence in that way. What I completely agree on with you, and I am absolutely convinced of, is that none of this will replace any human working on creating content, on supervising content, on understanding other humans' brains, on understanding the importance of interaction and rapport, on, someone who is interviewing another person. That is something that GPT is not going to do for you. If you are thinking about an audience and how to generate content for an audience from a marketing standpoint, you need to know your audience and you need to understand what ticks your audience and you need to understand how your audience is going to react. Again, great tool for assisting. I don't think that is a tool for replacing.
But it sounds like that if you don't embrace this tool, you might be out of a job, right? Because if everyone else is using it, you're going to be at a totally disadvantage.
I totally believe so. Not just applying the tool, but with the whole adoption of the tool also comes a change in mindset. And I can tell you that applies for me as well. So once you start playing around with it and experimenting it and understanding how amazing this can be in many different ways, it changes your life and it changes your mind. But if you resist it and if you dismiss it, that is a problem. Yeah.
And because you're bilingual and you're dealing with Latin America, do you have any experiences with how multiple languages play into the content output from AI?
It's amazing. It's really good.
So whether it's English, whether it's Spanish, it's good.
It's perfect. That's
Wow.
kind of scary.
It's funny because, I don't know if you're a sci-fi person, but in Star Trek, the idea is how come all these different nationalities can speak to each other and understand? Because there's this like universal translator,
Yes.
And with these types of things, you understand, well, it's going to happen where we'll, have something in our ear. And when people are talking, we'll hear exactly what it is because no longer our language is a barrier, but it's all the same using tools like this. Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast. Be sure to check us out online at thedmmentor.com and at the DM Mentor on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more marketing mentor magic. See you next time.